All right, let's get into it. Part 3. We left off at Vince McMahon rubbing on this girl's back. 2 days later, Miss Janelle was contracted about further meetings at WWE. A week later, she met with two high-ranking human resources employees referred to herein as Human Resources Employee 1 and Human Resources Employee 2. Both Employee Resources 1 and 2 provided Miss Janelle with their impressions about the company culture, and WWE confirmed that the ball was in her court to figure out where she would best fit at WWE. On May 5th, 2019, Miss Grant visited McMahon's condo again, and the topic of bucket list came up, during which Miss Grant expressed that she always dreamed of attending the Belmont Stakes. McMahon responded that he would personally acquire 2 tickets for her, which Miss Janelle said she would not accept. McMahon then stood up from his chair and kneeled in front of the chair where Miss Grant was seated, blocking her from standing. He leaned close to Miss Grant and told her to kiss him. Miss Grant paused and gave McMahon a kiss on the cheek, to which McMahon sighed, "That's not what I meant." After McMahon walked off to his bedroom and said that he wanted Miss Grant, she swiftly rejected his advances and tried to reason with him that he was putting her in a bad position. Miss Janelle pled with McMahon to stop and think about what he was doing. McMahon then begged repeatedly simply to hold Miss Janelle. Out of fear for her employment and his early implied threats about his legal team dealing with problems, Miss Janelle laid down in the bed next to McMahon and kept her hands clasped and ankles crossed as she acquiesced in saying that he could only hold her and nothing more. When Grant tried to make small talk about WWE TV storylines, McMahon suggested she watch the next episode of Monday Night Raw and text him before the broadcast. After she agreed, he forcibly kissed her and began pulling down a strap on her sweater. Miss Janelle then sat up and said she needed to leave and had a lot to process, and left. The next day, Miss Grant watched the show as promised and texted McMahon to visit him. And text McMahon to wish him well. She was shocked when he appeared on the show and texted back in the middle of the broadcast, "That was a very nice message, made me smile." On May 9th, 2019, McMahon texted Miss Grant that she will have a job at WWE by that Friday. The next day, Human Resources Employees 2 called Miss Grant to inform her that the WWE Corporate Officer number 4 would contact her at 4 p.m. to discuss a legal role. After the call with the Corporate Officer number 4, Miss Grant sent McMahon a thumbs-up text message to indicate the call went well. Around 7 p.m., Corporate Officer number 4 unexpectedly called her a second time to formally offer her a job, welcoming her to the WWE. On May 11th, 2019, McMahon invited Miss Grant to his condo again and asked her to lay in the bed with him before informing her that he had ordered WWE Corporate Officer number 4 to offer her the job, even though a job description had been firmed up beyond a high-level summary. While incredibly excited to finally receive long-awaited employment and financial security, Ms. Grant expressed to McMahon that there seemed to be a conflict between his doing this and was warning Ms. Janelle that no one could know about their closeness. He appeared amused with this reply, "It's my company." McMahon then undressed down to his briefs while Ms. Grant remained clothed, and he began kissing Ms. Grant and inserting his hands into her pants without consent. On May 16, 2019, McMahon informed Ms. Grant that he had obtained 2 tickets to the Belmont Stakes, scheduled for June 8, 2019. On May 17, 2019, Ms. Grant received an offer letter from the WWE for an entry-level job as a legal administrative coordinator with a salary of $75,000. On May 18, 2019, McMahon summoned Ms. Grant to his condo, and she bought a printed copy of the offer letter to review with him. McMahon informed Ms. Grant that her new boss, a WWE employee who worked in risk and government relations, referred to as employee number 1, has decade-long family friend and confidant, similar in age to Vince McMahon, and one of a small original group McMahon called the Titan family, who helped WWE expand from a regional promotion to a global juggernaut. McMahon stated, outside of his attorney, employee number one was the most feared figure in the company because employee number one usually fired employees. Beyond that, he offered little detail about employee number one's role at WWE. Instead, he focused on WWE personal trauma, employee number one's personal trauma, explaining that similar to Ms. Grant, employee number one has no family left after WWE employee number one's spouse passed away, and that the McMahons and WWE were employee number one's surrogate family. McMahon touted employee number one's loyalty, saying that WWE employee number one would be able to protect Ms. Grant, and then led her to his bedroom while giving her the command of, "Please don't stop this." During the May 18, 2019 encounter, Ms. Grant felt coerced into engaging in sexual activity that McMahon had trapped her in an impossible situation, as she feared adverse career and personal consequences and legal retaliation if she declined his advances. McMahon stated that "this is what I have been waiting for." He performed oral sex on Ms. Grant. Ms. Grant asked that protection be used. McMahon responded that there was no need to worry because he was clean. Feeling that she was being used for his gratification, Ms. Grant went numb and was unable to make eye contact. McMahon then flipped on his back and said, "Okay, jack him off." Disturbed by the non-consensual sexual encounter, she hoped that McMahon would cease his advances, but his advances continued and left her to fulfill his demands or lose her job. On June 16, 2019, the day before starting the WWE, Ms. Grant, Janelle Grant, attempted to shut down any further physical contact or sexual encounters by admitting to McMahon her unhappiness and concern, starting her first ever job in his legal department, no less. While in a physical relationship with the chairman and CEO, she requested that they end any physical relationship while remaining friends to avoid any risk to either of them. So for those that's like, well, why didn't she stop it? She went, apparently she said she went and asked to end the relationship. She tried. McMahon refused, saying it was not ending, it did not need to, and that he did not ever envision it ending. He reminded her that he trusted her, reiterated that rumors would lead to trouble, probed whether her silence would be an issue, brushed off her concerns that she was struggling with the feeling that her job felt unearned. Vince told Janelle that all she needed to do was not tell anyone, and that it just looked legit. Vince then spun the conversation, told Janelle to focus on the positives and embrace that her life was about to change, saying, isn't it that what you always wanted? McMahon manipulatively emphasized that she was about to start an adventure and gained a new family with the WWE as a surrogate for the family she had lost. Ultimately, Ms. Grant's unsuccessful attempt to end further unwanted physical contact quickly taught her that her view on the matter was not relevant. Ms. Grant's WWE career commences minimal work and an absent boss. On June 17, 2019, Ms. Grant reported to WWE headquarters for her first day of work. With attorneys in glass offices and support staffs in cubicle with low walls and tall monitors, it was easy to see how much other colleagues worked. As a quiet and small department, it was even easier to overhear their conversations. Ms. Grant was immediately surprised there was not much work assigned to her, struggling to even appear busy in her new role, in stark contrast to colleagues who complained about overflowing inboxes. Ms. Grant's phone only overflowed with controlling and sexually charged text messages from the chairman and CEO, reminding her of both McMahon's power and ever-present surveillance. Colleagues shared onboarding stories with Grant and talked about receiving pre-made binders of information or the opportunity to shadow department employees, none of which happened for Miss Grant. Nor did anyone know what her unusual title of administrative coordinator meant. Grant did not even meet WWE employee number one until her second week of employment. WWE employee number one was a lively individual who frequently regaled the legal department with stories of others at WWE. If McMahon's name was mentioned, WWE employee number one would turn to Ms. Grant with a smile, a finger point, and or comment that drew attention to her connection to Vince, such as, "She knows what I'm talking about." Employee number one and Ms. Grant bonded as quickly as McMahon had predicted. Ms. Grant, referred to as partner, was taught words to live by in WWE, including, "We do what's in the best interest of the company, protect the business, and if McMahon wants something, the answer isn't no, but rather, how do we make it happen?" Employee number one impressed on Ms. Grant's job titles don't mean anything for members of McMahon's inner circle, which he was clearly considered to be a part of. As WWE employee number one was seldom in the office and required little administrative support, Ms. Grant reported indirectly to another WWE employee within the legal department, which is employee number two, who provided her with occasional projects related to talent appearances and XFL that fulfilled Ms. Grant's time. Based on her hiring alone, corporate officer number 4 was on notice that there was something different about Miss Janelle, namely her connection to McMahon. As Janelle feared and had expressed to McMahon, she was unhappy that a spotlight was unnecessarily put on her before she ever set foot in the office. Miss Janelle immediately noticed that WWE corporate officer number 4 was warm with other colleagues but cold towards her. Beginning in July 2019, after Miss Grant raised an issue related to XFL's performance-enhancing drug policy with McMahon, corporate officer number 4's behavior shifted from cold to actively hostile. If Janelle walked into a room while WWE corporate officer number 4 was laughing with colleagues, number 4's expression immediately became blank, and number 4 would walk away. Number 4 and Miss Grant walked towards each other in the hallway. Number 4 stopped and changed directions. Colleagues noted this shift in behavior, while some commented on it to Miss Janelle, others emulated. Notwithstanding the issues detailed above, Miss Janelle took her employment seriously. In contrast, McMahon continued a pattern of sending sexually charged messages throughout the week. Certain her employee depended on her continued appeasement and obedience to McMahon, and believing that she needed McMahon's protection from suspicious WWE corporate officer number 4 and others. Ms. Grant felt no choice but respond in kind. From all this, Ms. Grant began to experience debilitating panic attacks in the office on a near daily basis that left her physically drained. She could not hide the physical symptoms of these attacks and texted resident manager, "You should see the way people look at me when I'm having an attack." But while her co-workers noticed, no one dared get involved. McMahon coerced controlled tactics to sexually and dehumanize Miss Grant. Now we're moving into another set of facts, folks. In the summer of 2019, McMahon's presence was all-consuming in Miss Grant's life. In the office, she felt monitored as she was surrounded by allies and Vince, which led to continued daily panic attacks. Outside the office, McMahon sexualized her entirely. He no longer referred to her as friend and largely stopped talking to Miss Grant outside of sexting and fantasy talk. Any non-sensual text related to life or work either ignored or given token responses like okay or yup. As detailed, McMahon was adamant about having Miss Grant send him explicit photos, impressing upon her that it was part of her sexuality. Given the control that McMahon had over Miss Grant's employment, She felt compelled to comply and sent the photographs to McMahon's mobile device. Ms. Grant was routinely assured that the photographs she provided to McMahon were to remain private and were part of their secret world. McMahon began to degrade Ms. Grant, calling her his bitch, while hinting at a fascination with having other people watch them engage in sexual activity. Additionally, his complaint details encounters during which McMahon caused Ms. Grant to sustain physical injuries, including bleeding and pain from forceful use of sex toys. Despite Ms. Grant's plea to cease any further activity, the number of sexual encounters increased, as did Vince McMahon's physical aggression during them. We're going to stop right here, and we're going to continue on into the next part of the facts. Keep up.